Hi! As you can see, this isn't one of my usual videos. Today we're going to explore the Arturia MiniFreak, a synthesizer that's been inspiring me a lot lately. For transparency's sake, I want to point out that Arturia kindly sent the MiniFreak to me completely for free, but they had zero requests about the content of this video and they didn't get to see any of it before its release. To be completely honest with you, I'm really happy about this opportunity because I've been an Arturia fan for years. In fact, you've already seen and heard Arturia instruments in many of my covers. I'm a proud owner of a MicroFreak, the MiniFreak's little brother and an awesome little synth on its own. I also make a lot of use out of Arturia's V collection, a great suite of software emulations of classic synthesizers. I've used it in basically every cover since I got it. This video isn't meant to be an in-depth review, as there are many great creators out there who already done that. I'm not going to talk about everything the synth can do or dive too much into specs. What this is going to be is just a collection of thoughts about the MiniFreak and how it integrates into my music making process. So, what exactly is a MiniFreak? In short, it's a compact synthesizer that features a variety of digital sound engines, analog filtering, a digital effects chain and a powerful modulation system. By mixing and matching all these features, you can create a huge variety of sounds, and it's very easy to get lost in the possibilities. As I was getting to know the MiniFreak, it quickly became clear that it works as an inspiration machine for me. While it's fully capable of handling classic bread and butter patches, I found myself consistently drawn to its more experimental side. Inspiration comes in many forms, and it often starts with an interesting sound, something the MiniFreak delivers really well. I own a fair amount of electronic gear, but my current setup is very simple. The only static pieces are my guitars, my PC and my MIDI controller. Over the years, I've streamlined my process into a DAW-centric workflow that suits me best. I usually bring in hardware only when I want to use a specific piece, and I'll swap it out depending on the project. With the MiniFreak, it usually goes like this. I boot it up, mess around till I find something I like, and then just record it into my project. Crazy, I know. What stands out though is that I don't reach for it to solve a specific problem. I reach for it when I want to get lost in sound design and see where it leads. In my opinion, that sense of discovery is one of the best parts of using the MiniFreak. The MiniFreak truly is a feature-packed machine, so it was hard for me to choose just a few favorites. This might sound obvious, but having two digital oscillators that can be completely different from one another is a huge plus for me. It lets you create complex, layered patches while keeping the process very accessible. With firmware 3.0, the MiniFreak received several new sample-based engines. They sound great on their own, but what really elevates them is how easily you can combine them with the other engines. The layering potential is massive, and even after spending a lot of time with the synth, I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface. This is usually what steals the show when people talk about the synth, and for good reason. The MiniFreak offers an impressive amount of modulation freedom, with a wide range of sources and destinations that can interact simultaneously. It's all made accessible through an intuitive modulation matrix, and it results in dynamic patches that shift and evolve over time. To me, modulation is what brings the whole package together. You can automate almost any parameter on the MiniFreak, including engine settings, filters, effects, and more. You can even do things like randomize pitch every time you press a key. In fact, here's a self-playing patch that I made. As if it wasn't enough, you're not just limited to modulating sound parameters, you can also modulate the modulators themselves. This opens the door to intricate modulation chains where one source controls a parameter while also being influenced by another modulator. You can think of it a bit like a modulation matryoshka. All of this might sound intense, but what I love is how well the layout supports both depth and simplicity. Everything is designed in a way that encourages exploration without ever feeling overwhelming. You can build something complex and experimental using everything the synth has to offer, or just focus on a few key areas and stop when the patch feels right to you. Now, this is a pretty unique aspect of the MiniFreak. It comes bundled with a software version of itself. The MiniFreak V plugin replicates the hardware unit one-to-one, letting you build and use your patches directly in your DAW, even when the hardware isn't plugged in. You can also connect the MiniFreak to your computer and the plugin and synth will sync up. Any changes made in the software are reflected in real time on the hardware and vice versa. You can also easily transfer patches back and forth. You can start building a sound on the hardware and then continue refining it in the plugin as you work on your project. The software also doubles as a great patch manager. You can easily organize, rename and tag all of your sounds before moving them to the hardware. This kind of workflow is ideal to me. I don't always want to have hardware plugged in, especially when I'm deep into arranging or mixing. Being able to open a project and still have access to the exact same sounds without needing to re-record anything is a huge time saver. It's honestly one of my favorite features as it bridges the gap between hands-on sound design and the flexibility provided by software instruments. Let me show you a quick example of how I usually approach sound design on the MiniFreak. I'm going to start from scratch with a blank patch and build it into something more interesting than just a basic waveform. First, I'll set oscillator 2 to the wave shaper engine and add some motion by modulating the wave shape and asymmetry using LFO1. This already gives us a bit of movement. I will also set the envelope so that we get a plucky attack that transitions into a quieter, sustained sound. Now, let's bring in oscillator 1. I'll use one of the new sample-based engines, the one called Hit Grains. As the name suggests, this engine plays little snippets, little grains of an audio sample. In this case, we're just using a simple note from a kalimba. Again, I will use LFO1 to modulate the density of the grains and their shape. This will gradually shift the playback speed and length of each single grain. Since we still have LFO2 doing nothing, let's use it to modulate LFO1's rate. This will bring in some unpredictability, especially because I will use a randomized waveform to do so. Next, I'll shave off a bit of high frequencies using the filter. Since we still want some pluckiness, I'll use the envelope to modulate the filter. This way, the filter will open up as soon as I press a key, and then slowly close down as the sound keeps playing. I will also add one last modulation. The filter will open up more or less depending on how hard I hit the keys, making everything more expressive. To conclude the patch, I will add some effects. I want to create a sense of space, so I'm just gonna stick with delay and reverb. So here's the final patch. The building blocks are pretty simple, but the modulation and layering features of the MiniFreak really shine in creating something textured and expressive. The MiniFreak has been out for a few years now, but Arturia has supported it with a steady stream of substantial updates. Still, during my time with it, I couldn't help but wish for a few features that aren't there, at least not yet. Even though the MiniFreak has stereo outputs, I feel like it could do more to take advantage of them. Sure, there are plenty of stereo effects, but none of them allow you to control how wide each effect gets in the stereo field. Similarly, I wish there was a way to pan the oscillators left and right. expanding would make for a fantastic modulation destination, adding even more variation and complexity. The MiniFreak also has an audio in, which you can use to process external audio with the built-in effects. Now that the synth features sample-based engines, it would be great to use the audio in to actually sample external audio. I'd also love being able to load custom samples onto the MiniFreak, especially since this is possible on the MicroFreak. Lastly, and this is a bit specific, I wish the amp envelope could be disabled, and that we could use different sources to modulate the amplitude and even trigger notes. This would open the doors to even more generative possibilities and make the MiniFreak feel closer to a semi-modular synth. This way it could really bridge the gap between classic synthesis and a more esoteric approach. Funnily enough, Arturia dropped a new update for the MiniFreak right as I was working on this video. This time they added 2 new vocoder effects types. Personally, I love this kind of sounds and I'm really happy to see this feature make its way onto the MiniFreak. The thing I appreciate the most though is Arturia's commitment to updating the synth and expanding its toolbox through the years. Some of you might remember my cover of Technopathetic from Jet Set Radio Future. In that video I actually used the MicroFreak for the vocoder parts. Now there actually are 2 vocoder effects. One will process the incoming audio signal and the other will process the internal synth sounds for some creative sound design. Here are some quick examples. So that's my take on the Arturia MiniFreak. It's quickly become one of my favorite tools for exploring new sounds and sparking fresh ideas. It manages to strike a great balance between flexibility and complexity, which in my opinion makes it a great fit for many people. Please keep in mind this video hasn't explored absolutely everything this synth can do. In fact, I haven't talked about a lot of stuff. The sequencer and arpeggiator with their variation engines, custom LFO shapes, custom macros, additional filters available in the oscillator sections, and some great effects like distortion or bit crushing. There is just so much to this synth that covering everything would have made this video overly long and less digestible. What I can say is you'll definitely be hearing the MiniFreak more in my future covers and music projects, so keep your ears peeled. If you got through the whole video up to this point, thanks so much. This was my first video of its kind, so if you have any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comments. If you want to support the channel, you can become a channel member here on YouTube or check out my Patreon in the description. Members and patrons get many perks, and this time they'll get all the audio tracks you've heard throughout the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.